On Parliamentary news tonight, Oyo school tragedy, Senate mourns victims, demands urgent action. House of Representatives demands stronger security cooperation amid rising threats. Plus, lawmakers seek stronger legal framework for Police Trust Fund. Thank you for joining us on the news on NTA Parliament. I am Abubakar Galadima. Now the news. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Abbas Tajuddin, has urged Nigerians to renew President Bola Tinubu's mandate in 2027 to complete ongoing policies and projects. The Speaker stated this in a congratulatory message to the President on his administration's third anniversary. The Speaker Abbas notes that the government is delivering on its renewed hope agenda despite inheriting a country initially on life support, economically and security-wise. The Speaker commended President Tinubu for choosing long-term reforms over political convenience, saying Nigerians are now seeing results in GDP growth, a boost in external reserves and FAC allocations, as well as massive infrastructure, with major projects like the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, Abuja-Kaduna-Kano Highway, and rail modernization, opening new economic corridors. Speaker Abbas reaffirmed the commitment of the 10th Assembly and House of Representatives to work with the executive on laws that will improve welfare and security and call for stronger federal, state, and local collaboration. The Senate has expressed hope that those abducted during the attack on schools in Oyo State will soon be rescued by security operatives as it resolves to fast-track its national summit on security. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that the Red Chamber also resolved to close session to discuss other matters.
Activities resumed this Tuesday in the Red Chamber as lawmakers reconvene after participating in party primaries and the Eid al-Kabir festival. Their hearts heavy with grief over yet another breach of security in schools where pupils went in search for knowledge. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, led the Red Chamber in praying for and observing a minute silence to honor the victims.
This is not merely an attack on innocent citizens. It is an assault on our collective humanity. We mourn because if we cannot protect our children, we imperil our future.
On political matters, Akpabio congratulated parties on the recent conduct of primaries, adding that the Senate leadership is consulting to address disappointments.
In this Senate, we had promised that we will have very few disappointments. And I do know that the Senate leader and the leadership of the Senate is working very hard towards that. So in advance, I will say congratulations to all of us across party lines.
Senate passed 2 bills from the House for concurrence and passed 5 others at first reading, among them a bill on digital health sponsored by Senate leader Senator Gbemi Bamidele. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
Still on the school abduction, the Senate has re-echoed appeals to authorities to facilitate quick rescue of persons abducted by criminals in many Nigerian communities. Senate had on Tuesday, after reconvening plenary, expressed sadness over attacks and abductions in schools and emphasized collective effort to tackle insecurity. At the sitting this Wednesday, Senator Fatai Buhari, through a motion, recalls the Oyo school abduction of last month and the trauma it caused, while Senator Sadiq Umar drew attention to the series of attacks in parts of Kwara State, including the attack on the palace of the traditional ruler, during which some family members were abducted and the palace set ablaze. The Senate has reassured that all victims of abduction, including those of Borno State, will be reunited with families soon as it continues to push for improved security across the country. The future of police funding in Nigeria comes under focus as lawmakers, security experts, and government agencies examine proposals to overhaul the Nigerian Police Trust Fund through a new legislative framework. At a public hearing on the bill to repeal the Nigerian Police Trust Fund Act 2019 and establish a new act in 2026, stakeholders agreed that while the fund has supported infrastructure, training and operational needs of the police remain critical. Francis Form reports.
Questions relating to funding framework of the fund, as well as litigation arising from certain provision of the law, have created uncertainties that have affected the smooth execution of some aspect of its statutory mandate.
The proposed legislation seeks to remove the fund's expiration clause, increase statutory funding from 0.5 to 1% and expand revenue sources to strengthen police modernization efforts.
The executive decision to bring forward this bill demonstrates a recognition of the critical role that sustainable funding and effective governance play in success of policing. The ministry therefore believes that the repeal and re-enactment of the Nigerian Police Trust Fund Act 2026 will further strengthen the legal and institutional framework necessary for sustaining the gains already achieved.
This bill will provide a stronger institutional framework to support the agenda by ensuring sustainable funding for police modernization, training, technology infrastructure, and welfare of the personnel.
Section 12 is very critical. It's talking about the need assessment. The IG is supposed to be the person to give the need assessment to the LPTF for implementation because he knows what he needs.
Beyond funding, discussions center on governance, transparency, and oversight, with stakeholders advocating stronger accountability mechanisms, civil society representation, and safeguards against political influence. Questions were also raised about whether investments in equipment and technology are translating into improved security outcomes across the country. Participants further stressed that police welfare must remain a priority, arguing that better salaries, pension, and working conditions are critical to boosting morale and professionalism within the force. While broad support exists for proposed reforms, stakeholders insist that future interventions must be measurable, transparent, and responsive to emerging threats such as cybercrime, organized crime, and digital insecurity. Francis Form, NTA News.
The House of Representatives has called for more coordinated and collaborative intelligence sharing among security agencies to ensure the safety of worship centers and worshippers across the country. This resonated on the floor as members continue to react to security challenges in parts of the country. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nko reports.
It is the second plenary of the week, and only 2 motions of urgent public importance were entertained. Both of them bordered on national security.
They consider the 2 motions urgent and important for your consideration.
Kola Wole Akinlayo, under matter of urgent public importance, cited the abduction of worshippers on the 28th of April 2026 in Ekiti State and made some recommendations.
All the Nigeria Police Force, the Armed Forces of Nigeria, Department of State Security, and other security agencies to intensify coordinated operation to secure the immediate rescue of the abducted victims and ensure the perpetrator are swiftly brought to justice.
Mohammed Audu once again drew the attention of members to what he described as persistent communal clashes between Karinjo and Wukun communities in Taraba State, which has claimed 5 lives, and the need for urgent intervention.
Most people are now in the refugee camps. A lot of areas, places like Salakan, has been burned down.
Through motions we have taken or requested for a minute silence. So with your kind permission, let us all rise and observe a minute silence in honor of the deceased. The soul of the departed, rest in peace.
The story of Igabi Federal Constituency in Kaduna State and its agricultural potentials was presented to the House by its representative, Hussaini Jallo. He's pushing for the establishment of a dedicated agricultural processing and manufacturing hub in the area, one that he believes will transform the constituency's vast farming potential into real industrial power for Nigeria.
Mandated the inclusion of the project in the 2027 appropriation bill under Agricultural Industrialization Fund will focus on rice milling, tomato paste, maize flour, soya beans, and millet and livestock feed production lines.
3 members of APC defected to other parties. Rabiulu Bala, Bauchi State, defected to People's Redemption Party. Abubakar Bala Zango, Adamawa State, to the African Democratic Congress, and Abdullahi El Rashid from Gombe State to ADC. from the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
We will now pause for a short break. The news continues shortly. Please don't go away.
Where decisions are made and Nigeria watches, from heated debates to national decisions, from your local constituency to the chambers of power.
For women, the path to power is even steeper.
Watch young parliamentarians every week on NTA Parliament.
From the 36 states of Nigeria to the legislative chambers where laws are made.
Amendments to the Electoral Act 2020.
The committee to carry out a comprehensive investigation on the matter.
This is where democracy speaks, loud, clear, and live.
Transmission to distribution.
NTA Parliament, strengthening Nigeria's democracy.
Stay informed, stay engaged, stay ahead. NTA Parliament, bringing the nation's house to your home. Unfiltered, unbiased, unmissable.
Welcome back. You are watching the news on NTA Parliament, coming to you from the nation's capital, Abuja. As political activities gradually gather momentum ahead of upcoming elections, attention is once again focusing on how political parties choose their candidates. The focus is on the role of the National Assembly in proposing reforms that will make the process democratic, fair, and transparent. Ladi Bala reports.
At the center of the conversation is the issue of internal party democracy, a principle that measures how democratic political parties handles their internal affairs, particularly in the selection of candidates for elective offices. Political parties traditionally conduct primaries to nominate candidates who will represent them in general elections. However, concerns have often been raised over allegations of candidate imposition, limited participation by party members, vote buying, and undue influence by powerful party leaders. These concerns have prompted calls for reforms aimed at making the process more transparent, inclusive, and credible. The National Assembly is currently considering proposals that could alter the framework governing party primaries. Supporters of the reforms argue that expanding participation and strengthening transparency will deepen democracy and ensure that candidates emerge through a more competitive process. Others, however, contend that political parties should retain the constitutional freedom to determine their internal affairs without excessive external interference. The debate raises fundamental questions about who should have the ultimate power to choose political candidates, ordinary party members through broader participation, or a smaller group of party leaders and delegates acting on behalf of the party. As lawmakers continue discussion on the possible amendments, stakeholders say the outcome could significantly shape the future of political party administration and democratic governance in Nigeria. From the National Assembly, Ladi Bala, NTA News.
Now, the topic for discussion is the National Assembly and internal party democracy, examining the strengths and weaknesses of proposed reforms to party primaries. To shed more light on this and the implication of the proposed reforms and what they mean for the country's democratic development, we are joined by public affairs analyst Dr. Dauda Ibrahim. You're welcome to NTA Parliamentary News.
Thank you.
The National Assembly is proposing changes to the conduct of party primaries. In your view, how could these reforms affect the way political parties select their candidates?
A very important step, which is a welcome development that the National Assembly is considering moderating or overhauling the party primaries processes by which candidates are selected or elected rather. Because one of the major problems bedeviling political parties, which causes cross-carpeting, more of decamping, whatever terminology that is that they call it, and divisions within the system, which end up sometimes with violence and the end effect of it, it's the system that is affected. Governance is affected. Development is affected by the same process. So we cannot underscore the importance of a credible party primaries processes. So coming out with a lasting solution that will, see the emergence of candidates from political parties that are credible, smoothly, fairly, openly, and within the ambit of rule of law cannot be overstated.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. There's an ongoing debate over whether ordinary party members or small group of party leaders and delegates should determine party candidates. Which approach best promotes transparency, accountability, and fairness in the electoral process?
These debates have been going on for quite some time, over the years, on which mode of primary is most suitable for the emergence of candidates in a free and fair manner. You have the delegate system, where delegates are nominated from the ward, local government level to represent the party at the national level to converge and elect leaders. It has its own flaws and problems. You have the direct primaries, which is more of a general election model, where the members of the party at the lowest level will converge and do the open secret ballot, where they will queue and vote. Now, these are basically, then the third method is the consensus, which these are the three basic models that are being adopted now. The issue is not primarily with the method, but with the processes that govern the method. Intending aspirants who want to be candidates of political parties have methods and ways of, engaging in different schemes that affects the integrity of the process. What the lawmakers should look at beyond the process of party primaries is the emergence and the selection of aspirants. Because the process of selection of aspirants, clearance, screening and clearing of aspirants is a critical factor that the National Assembly has not looked into. We are concentration on primaries, whereas the people that are causing these problems are the intending aspirants in most cases. So the selection process, the screening process should be looked into and corrected or amended within the Electoral Act to bring in more, processes that will properly screen people beyond certificates. It should be character-based, process-based. Where are you coming from? What were your achievements? What are your records? What are your relationship even with your family to start with? Because leadership starts from the family level. But we're basing our screening purely on basically 2 or 3 things. What did the Constitution say? You present the requisite documentation that the Constitution, that is basically the primary criteria. Then the others the party may consider is if you have litigation cases or you have criminal cases. Then, but even with that, the law is not too particular on if you have an ongoing case, it affects your screening. You can have a litigation case and then you presume, because you are presumed innocent, then you are cleared to contest. You may have criminal behavior in history that will be overlooked because the law did not disqualify you because you have those records. That is where the major problem is, aside the screening, aside the primaries problem. The screening procedure should be looked into. Qualification processes should be firm and retweaked to capture all those things to make sure that only people of proven integrity, character, and track records are even qualified to even vie for office in the first place. When you have 9 people that are not credible in character, in conduct, and in everything, now competing against 1 person or 2 people that have clearly scored those moral, character, and all other criteria, these other people will definitely conspire to find ways to corrupt the primary processes, which is what we are seeing, and emerge. Hence, you end up with bad leadership. So if the process of screening candidates is changed to capture these things, to make it almost impossible for people that have this questionable, characters or behavioral processes or bad history, then we will end up with more credible people who, because if someone is credible, the tendency for them to tamper with legal processes that has to do with rule of law is going to be less. It's mostly people with questionable characters who will damn the rule of law and then try to bend or corrupt processes to emerge. But people with proven integrity will never do that. So I think the problem should go, the National Assembly should go back to the process of selection of aspirants to qualify to even go for primaries. That is where 70% of the problem is, because they are the ones that are creating problem in the primary processes. And then on the primaries, the law should introduce digital processes in the party primaries. Because one of the major issues, for example, one of the domineering complaints in most of the party primaries we've seen across the country is, interference of withholding of result sheets, and people will gather. Somebody powerful will withhold the result sheets, or either give photocopy or completely refuse to send the result sheets to a stronghold of a particular aspirant whom they know they cannot manipulate, for example, because it's a paper-based process. But if it is digital, and the conduct of primaries should not be left squarely in the hands of political parties, because this is a process that is producing national leaders. It shouldn't be left. INEC should be deeply involved. The law should make it mandatory for INEC not to go there as observers, but to go there as participants in the conduct of the primaries. If possible, INEC's machines should be used in screening and the election processes, while the party provides the guidance and other structures. But INEC should conduct the primaries using digital, or the party should provide the digital, which, if they're in charge of it, is almost the same thing.
It's almost the same.
So an independent body should be given the power to do the biometric or electronic voting process. It will reduce tendencies of corruption, it will reduce result tampering, and it will increase the integrity. So if you combine the screening process and the primaries process, you discover that these problems will be reduced. There are other more advanced processes where you will have an elite electoral college that will be independent of people of integrity, retired chief justices, vice chancellors, people of proven character and integrity who have gone above board in moral corruption, to sit and then be the ones to screen aspirants of all the political parties based on a guided rule within the Electoral Act. So it is not a party that is screening. The party will submit their aspirants, all of them, to that body. And that body will screen these aspirants and clear this based on the provisions of the Electoral Act and the party manifestos, party internal rules. And then those that are qualified will now be sent back to the party for the party to present them for primaries. And when they are going for primaries, the same process apply. You now have people of proven integrity. It's a sieving process to reduce the burden of getting people of questionable characters finding their way to the corridors of power. And then the same applies in the primary processes. Whichever method of primaries is adopted, digital process should be involved and manned by independent umpires, while the party also participate, but should not be left in control squarely of the process.
Thank you very much. Do you believe the proposed reforms to party primaries will strengthen internal democracy within political parties? And what challenges might arise in implementing these reforms?
It depends on the angle the National Assembly is going to look at within the context of the reform. What type of reform are they thinking? What are they going to put on the table? That will determine whether it will succeed or it will not succeed. So until they make to the public the nature of reform they want to bring, into the Electoral Act, then Nigerians will be able to know how to contribute or how to assess the type of reform they are trying to. But we can only, Nigerians can only offer their opinion now on what they think should be part. But overall, if the National Assembly will do a thorough job and remove emotion and sentiment and look at Nigeria and the bigger picture, these things I said are going to play a huge role in adding to the value, which I know there are a lot of things they have as lawmakers that will add value to making sure that the problems that is bedeviling primary processes within the political party is reduced to the barest minimum.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Dr. Dauda Ibrahim, a public affairs analyst on NTA Parliamentary News. That has been the outlook of the news on NTA Parliament. You can watch this and other programs on the following media handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching the news. I am Abubakar Galadima. Bye for now.